This is a book review. Interesting takeaways I found in this book. This is Your Brain on Parasites. Let's dive in. First one is the skin saves the body from germs. Saliva and hair are preventing germs to get into the body through open vessels. So I find it interesting. Just the way the skin is preventing germs to get in. And the saliva and hair, we have hair in our nose, ears, or saliva just in our mouth, and that's supposed to help with open vessels, which microbes can just go through, and that's supposed to protect us from that. Next one is, when you cough, does your body trying to get rid of the parasite, or the parasite makes you cough in order to spread itself? I don't think or she, I don't know, it doesn't matter. They don't address that question, or they just erase that question. I do not remember any particular answers. But it's an interesting question. When you cough, maybe it's your body trying to get rid of the parasite, or the parasite is trying to spread itself to other people, and by coughing, that's going to cause spreading, because you spread those germs. Next one is, caffeine help bees to remember. So the next one is, caffeine helps bees to remember where flowers are. Turns out it also helps humans to remember flowers, specifically better. So caffeine, so bees are consuming caffeine as well, and it actually helps them to remember where flowers are. And turns out that it also helps the humans specifically to remember where flowers, something about flowers, which is interesting. Next one is, getting a cold only take into effect a few days after the infection. So it's not from last night that you got the cold. Usually people, even myself, many times I get a cold and I always blame whoever I saw last night or even today. But the thing is that it can take up to 3 days, to take into effect. So don't blame anyone. Next one is, cold might make human more social, especially in the early days before symptoms are present. And they found some kind of, they did some studies and they found some kind of hints that might happen. That's really interesting if it does. That you might be more social. So it could be that the parasite or the virus is cause you to be more social in order to make you be around more humans and spread that germ. Next one is, rabies increase rage levels, which in turn may turn into biting and the transmitting of the diseases as it's supposed to be. So rabies, when animals have it, increase their rage levels. And that might cause them biting, because this is how they might get angry on someone and start a fight, and they might bite, because this is how they defend or attack. And of course, that's gonna cause the transmitting of that disease. So that's the technique. The next is, the core microbiome, mean types of microbes that are usual for a typical gut. So that's what caused the core microbiome. There is like the main microbes that's supposed to be in there. Interesting. Next one is, gut bacteria might have a huge impact on the way a person digests food. The wrong microbes can cause obesity. So gut bacteria is highly important and have a huge impact on how we digest our food. So if we don't have the right microbe, that's going to cause obesity, which I found interesting. And it's also, I think it's genetics and a lot of shit goes into it. Next one is, a lack of microbes due to high sanitation and C-sections might cause obesity. And we don't have enough microbes in our gut. And high sanitations, because that we have, that cause less microbes. that might cause obesity. So it's the same idea as here. So wrong microbes and lack of such can cause obesity. One is Helicobacter pylori, it's kind of a germ parasite. It's associated with telling you to stop eating. Some people don't have it, but just interesting. I suffered a little bit from that, and this is associated with when stop eating. So people that don't have it could be that they lack that microbe. This one is nausea might be contagious because back in the days it was smart to throw up what the person next to you just ate. I really like this one. So why we have nausea when we see other people throw up? Because back in the days when you all eat the same animal and you see your friend that just sit next to you throw up, you better throw up as well because you just ate the same food. It doesn't have to be animal, it could be any other. Even if your family member just ate a soup and you throw up, of course it might be just he got something, but could be that you got it as well. The next one is, since increasing the body's temperature requires a lot of energy, when we need to kill germ, we go to bed and will do anything, and the will to do anything will diminish. So when we have some kind of a virus, our body will increase the temperature in order to kill the germs, and then we will go to bed because there's a lot of energy requires to increase the temperature. And that's why also we don't want to do anything because the body is trying to conserve energy. This one is, licking wounds is antibacterial due to the saliva content. So saliva is antibacterial. Many animals are licking their wounds after they have it, and the reason is because it's antibacterial. This one is very special bird that eat ticks from the ears of the elephant and giraffes. It's a win-win situation. There is a special type of birds that they eat ticks from the ears. So they have like a long mouth, I forgot the name of it, and they go into the ear and take ticks from there. So it's a win-win situation, which you can find there is a few of them in the animal kingdom. This one is, symmetry entails that in the early ages of life were without major infections. So symmetry of a person, that's why there is a tendency to attract to symmetry, because that means that there wasn't any major infections in the early ages, and in general there was not a lot of problems, which usually means good genes. This one is, sex might develop to overcome the lack of fast reproduction that's supposed to eliminate mutations within cells. So mutations, or start with this, cells and other like germs and viruses, they don't need sex. They just reproduce they're just reproduced by themselves. They don't need sex every specific amount of time or every whatever cause them to reproduce, but it's really fast. So sex might develop to overcome the lack of fast reproduction. We don't have that lack of reproduction with the fast reproduction that's supposed. The whole reason of reproduction is to overcome mutation. So you don't want to have, if one thing is wrong, you don't want to keep having it. And sex, because you have two different type of people, or any two type of germs, or any two type of I don't know how you call it exactly, but things are going in together, but they don't have the same characteristics. So like a cell or a virus has the same thing. So by developing, he overcome mutation. And the same idea is when you have two people. Let's take two people, they come with two different systems, two different microbes, two different germs, two different everything, and that's supposed to overcome mutation. I hope that makes sense. Next one is, country with higher temperatures tend to eat more spices because that helps with keeping the food healthy due to higher temperature. I think it's interesting. So I think it's southern countries or people countries that are closer to the equator, hotter temperature, higher weather, or warmer weather, they eat more spices. The reason is because spices supposed to or help keep the food safe or prevent germs and parasites to get into the food. And hot weather in general is not good for food. So having spices, that's supposed to keep the food healthy for longer. So colder countries does not use any or use very little spices because they didn't need it. And the next one is eating white clay or some sort of dirt can protect from all kinds of parasites. It's interesting. I haven't read too much about it, and there is also the next one is, we'll just go to the next one. Some people have craving for dirt because of its influence. So I think women in pregnant have craving for dirt because it's supposed to have protection from all kinds of parasites. I do not remember exactly how it works, but it's interesting. Next one is, we are not discussed by our spouse fluids because we already got exposed to them, unlike strangers' fluids, which we are discussed by. It's interesting. So usually it doesn't have to be our spouse, but usually it's our spouse, but it could be our children or our immediate close family. So we're not get discussed by it. Because we already got exposed to them. So that's the reason of why we don't get discussed by, because we already got exposed to them and we already have the antidote for those germs. But strangers we discuss by because we don't know what they have, and it's better to be cautious in order to prevent any problems in the future. Next one is, when people are posed threat from infections such as pregnancy, they're more likely to be discussed by germs. So they found that women in pregnancy, they get discussed more by germs, so they're more afraid and they're like, oh, I don't want to drink from you and all such and such, because they have higher threat right now. The immune system doesn't work properly and they're more exposed. So this is the natural way of their body to protect itself. Interesting. Next one is, in LA, it used to be that Mondays is Mexican swimming day, and afterwards they would deplete the pool and refill it for whites only. I was not aware of that fact. So they had a whole day. I think even before they had this idea, they didn't let any Mexicans come in, but afterwards they had a Mexican day and they thought they have a lot of germs and they're not clean and blah blah blah. So what they did is they had a whole day only for Mexicans, and they deplete all the water and get a new water for the whites. Interesting and racist. Next one is, studies show that conservatives are more discussed by worms than liberals. Interesting. So liberals tend to be more open usually, and conservatives are more discussed by germs. That's why they're also, not that's why, but just an interesting distinction between the two. Next one is, farming brought many diseases along with the crops that were never existed in large numbers before. Due to large numbers of crops, more parasites and all kinds of flies and mosquitoes came along because they have a lot of food right now, and that's what farming brought many diseases that were not existed before. One is, in the Jewish tradition, there is a lot of advice about health, such as sex, covering wells, wash hands, don't eat specific animals, and how to eat them. In the Jewish, so it's like the Torah, and they have many tips on how to live a healthy life, if you might say. So how to have sex, cover well, and the whole idea is that they knew there is something about, they didn't know germs, but they saw some patterns. So covering wells, they have, I think they said like something about demons and stuff like that. But they found that, okay, people are getting sick, so we might cover the wells, and they blame it on demons or whatever they said. But turns out that they understood there is something about something that they can see that caused them to be sick. So it could be wash hands before eating. They have that too. Don't eat specific animals. And how to eat them. So don't eat like animals that died naturally. And they have reasons. The reasons are wrong, but the idea is still on, and they were onto something. Now we know why, but the act is still in place. Sorry. So the next one is, in places with higher parasites rates, people tend to be more introverted, not shaking hands, and tend to be more collectivists. Interesting. So where there is more parasites, I think it's like places like China. I don't remember the reason why there is higher parasites there. Could be many. I don't remember exactly. I don't know if they say. And typically be more introverted, so they stay indoors, do not engage with many people. Could be like, of course, evolutionary adaptation, and did not shake hands. Same reason. So they do like, I think they did like bow and do like a namaste thing, and they also tend to be more collectivists. I don't remember why is that, but that's the idea. All right, that's it here. Interesting book. I think I would like give it like, what is it? 4 stars. Interesting. Some, again, not some interesting stories. So 3.5. I wish I could. 3.5 out of 5. Almost 4, because there is some good information, but there's also some really boring stories, and didn't liked. That's pretty much it. Adios.